whose desire turns away from outer things reaches the place of the soul. If he does not find the soul, the horror of emptiness will overcome him, and fear will drive him with a whip lashing time and again in a desperate endeavour and a blind desire for the hollow things of the world. This quote, from Jung's deeply personal Red Book, not only shows his own introspection, but also mirrors ideas found within many of his seminal works about humanity at large. In Jung's work Approaching the Unconscious, he, as one of the founding members of the psychoanalytical school of psychology, focuses on the power of the subconscious mind on the mental well-being of the individual. If we explore some of these ideas, we can garner some of Jung's personal beliefs on society at large. Jung devoutly believed in the idea of archetypes, a concept he created and constantly referred back to in his works. An archetype, in Jung's understanding, are universal ideas manifested in symbols found universally throughout cultures, without cross-fertilization, and that we have a deep subconscious understanding of and need in order to have synergy with the world around us and our own conscious desires. These universal ideas, such as the universal mother or mother nature, or motifs found within human behaviour such as the soldier, artist and philosopher as examples, give meaning to human existence and are found in myth, religion and even esotericism. Even if not thought about on a conscious level, these subconscious symbols found within religion and myth elevated man and gave him purpose, and also allowed his subconscious mind to facilitate the passing on of messages to the conscious, something Jung argues is imperative to the dream analysis he helped found. However, the modern man doesn't have this. His mind, like the organs in his body, have gone through thousands of years of evolution and change, and the remnant of these subconscious symbols and desire for elevation and deeper meaning, although needing one, have no outlet. The turn to rationality in science, Jung argues, although marked with progress in many ways, has led to a spiritual and psychological deterioration in humanity, and will come with tangible consequences. In Jung's words, yet in order to sustain his creed, contemporary man pays the price in a remarkable lack of introspection. He is blind to the fact that, with all his rationality and efficiency, he is possessed by powers that are beyond his control. His gods and demons have not disappeared at all, they have merely got new names. They keep him on the run with restlessness, vague apprehensions, psychological complications, an insatiable need for pills, alcohol, tobacco, food and above all, a large array of neuroses. In other words, without an outlet that allows him to explore these themes and motifs found throughout society at large and mirrored in his own subconscious, man will become more lost than ever before. Crisis of meaning, lack of faith and loss of moral purpose will drive man to turn to other means of comfort, and psychological and physical symptoms will manifest themselves through modern man not having an outlet that allows him to gain any genuine understanding about what he really is, or how he really fits into society at large at all. Ignoring the thousands of years of psychological evolution that brought him to this point, and the archetypes that represent the archaic part of his mind, life will become meaningless, and no amount of food, hedonism or drugs will bring the meaning back. This is Jung's fearful prediction of the future from a psychoanalytical perspective. But are there similarities between his belief and the predictions of others? Aldous Huxley, opening up a dramatic reading of his book for radio in 1956, called Brave New World, a fantastic parable about the dehumanization of human beings, claiming science, technology and social organization have become the masters of humanity instead of the tools that once served them. But in this book, where religion has long been forgotten, human emotion is seen as a remnant of primality rather than a virtue, and human connection both to their inner self and to others has been methodically dismantled with soma, a state-administered drug, and social engineering, can we find any similarities between Jung's fear of the future for the modern man and Huxley's fear of negative utopia? And how much do we need to worry about both men's fears becoming an increasingly possible reality? It is no secret to anyone that the modern world has seen a rise in mental illness for the average person. 20.5 million antidepressant drugs were administered in England alone from April to June 2021. Worldwide, though mostly focused on the Western world due to marketing in these countries being stronger and depression rates being higher, the market for these antidepressant drugs was worth $14,538 million USD in 2020 and is projected to be worth $17,233 million in 2026. Furthermore, illicit drug use in both the UK and the USA have increased dramatically. Even in the recent years, 24.6 million Americans aged 12 or older, almost 10% of the population, had used illegal substances in the month of this survey's taking. In the UK, a 19% growth in illicit drug usage has taken place from 2019 to 2020. These findings, of course, are just the reported cases, but as personal experience has probably taught all of us, cocaine, cannabis, MDMA and of course alcohol are all increasing in usage and becoming an intrinsic fabric of the Western world's culture. Jung would tell us that this is a form of escape, a longing for meaning not satisfied, as we have no place to explore the deeper ideas in ourselves and our culture as a whole. But this increasing use and dependence on drugs to distract us from reality is not just worrying on a personal level, but a societal one. In a lecture entitled The Ultimate Revolution, Huxley warns of a pharmacological method of control that would utilise humanity's need to take holidays from himself, and through this escapism, make human beings come to love a state of things by which any reasonable and decent human standard they ought not to love. The increasing and commonplace reliance on antidepressants or illicit drugs as a result of dissatisfaction with either personal circumstance or societal problems makes this a growing and ever-present danger, but it's part of a larger scale problem. Q. Neil Postman and his work Amusing Ourselves to Death. Postman himself argued that the Huxleyan vision for the future is far closer to reality than Orwell's dystopian nightmare found in 1984 for one critical reason: the populations will be kept in chains through their own entertainment and dopamine addictions, not state violence and totalitarianism, as was the 20th century model. We as modern beings are kept in a constant state of perpetual distraction, and he argues that this was the key foundation to our tyranny. He argues attention spans are being destroyed by short-form entertainment, a problem that has only gotten worse considering he was writing this about the TV of 1985, when the book was published. He argues that hearing news from half the world away that doesn't actually have any true effect on our lives, swapping books and the patient's need to read them and understand them for daytime TV, and the radio feeding you more bad news daily on your way to work are having profound impacts on everything we once held dear. Not only are you kept addicted to constant stimulation, but your mood swings like a pendulum between jubilation and misery, far quicker than ever before. He argues our shrinking attention spans can be seen in everything from the deterioration of our art, the sensationalizing of our politics, and the dumbing down of our education system. The 21st century has exacerbated this problem tenfold. With the advent of the smartphone and information being instantaneously at our fingertips, we have seen a decline of attention spans and perhaps tangible effects on our neurology. There are many ways we can witness this, as technology only becomes more commonplace in our societies and used at younger and younger ages. Many studies now show negative effects on memory and self-control. Let us then take a look at classical conditioning. Pavlov showed us that there was a clear correlation between outside stimuli and neurological stimulation. Classical conditioning has shown us that even our core functions such as hunger, sleep and sexual activity can all be profoundly affected by outside sources. Furthermore, operant conditioning clearly shows a correlation between reward, punishment and behavioural patterns. Keeping this idea of exterior stimuli affecting our cognitive and biological function in mind, let us then take a look at some more psychological experiments that further support this. Rat Park. Rat Park was a series of studies into drug addiction conducted in the late 1970s and published between 1978 and 1981 by Canadian psychologist Bruce K. Alexander and his colleagues at Simon Fraser University in British Columbia, Canada. The studies were designed to be a rebuttal to earlier experiments done about drug addiction, where the rats were often kept in solitary confinement with small metal cages and artificial lighting, and given a choice between self-administering addictive drugs or food. Alexander argued that this environment was skewing the results and decided to set up his own addiction experiment. Alexander and his colleagues built Rat Park, a large housing colony 200 times the floor area of a standard laboratory cage. There were 16 to 20 rats of both sexes in residence, food, balls and wheels for play, and enough space for mating, and the rats could enjoy freedoms and biological functions not available to them in previous experiments. The results were clear. The rats' addiction to the morphine spiked water plummeted, and instead they frolicked in the Arcadian jungle gym set up for them in the laboratory, with their natural way of life bolstering them against addiction. Let us explore one more concept: mass psychosis. We understand from the political lessons of the 20th century how easy it is for entertainment to become propaganda. A good example of this is the agitprops of the Soviet Union, where literature, plays, pamphlets, films and other art forms with an explicitly political message in favour of communism were used to control and warp the minds of the population. However, be this as it may, one ideology's propaganda is another's truth, and so far more useful to explore is the effect of surroundings and ideas on the minds and behaviours of a population. If a society is made to live in tyranny through totalitarianism, such as the communist or fascist regimes of the 20th century, unnatural behaviours start to emerge in the populations that would not be commonplace in more free societies. Examples of this are the CCP struggle sessions in which the communist belief system indoctrinated children to torture and humiliate their parents for speaking out against the regime. However, our liberal democratic societies also witness unnatural behaviours that show we too are living in unnatural conditions that are warping our minds and fostering insanity. Mass psychosis can be seen in many forms throughout history, and has been recently documented many times in the liberal democracies of the West and all over the East. Since the Industrial Revolution, there have been instances in schools and factories most frequently where unnatural timings and conditions force people to conform to an artificial power structure and schedule. One of the key signifiers of mass psychosis is the fact that physical symptoms manifest where there is no organic cause, the power of the mind literally manifesting itself in adverse symptoms of the affected individual. One case study of such an illness was when W.H. Foon, Ministry of Labour in Singapore, gave a case study of 6 outbreaks of MPI in Singapore factories between 1973 and 78. They were characterised by 1. Hysterical seizures of screaming and general violence, wherein tranquilizers were ineffective; 2. Trance states, where a worker would claim to be speaking under the influence of a spirit or jinn; and 3. Frightened spells, where some workers complained of unprecedented fear or being cold, numb or dizzy. Outbreaks would subside within a week. Often, a medicine man would be called in to do a ritual exorcism. Patterns like this in factories appeared in the West also. In the United States, especially notable is the Junebug outbreak. In June 1962, a peak month in factory production, 62 workers at a dressmaking factory in a textile town in the southern United States experienced symptoms including severe nausea and breaking out on the skin. Most outbreaks occurred during the first shift, where 4/5 of the workers were female. Of 62 total outbreaks, 59 were women, some of whom believed they were bitten by bugs from a fabric shipment. Entomologists and others were called in to discover the pathogen, but none were found. Another case in the United States described an outbreak of mass sociogenic illness in the data centre of a university town in the United States Midwest. 10 of 39 workers smelling an unconfirmed mystery gas were rushed to a hospital with symptoms of dizziness, fainting, nausea and vomiting. They reported that most workers were young women, either putting their husbands through school or supplementing the family income. Those affected were found to have high levels of job dissatisfaction. Those with strong social ties tended to have similar reactions to the supposed gas, which only one affected woman reported smelling. No gas was detected in tests of the data centre. Patterns can most definitely be seen here. Intense dissatisfaction causing workers to literally manifest reasons to stop work. In the Singaporean case, their manifestations came straight from their mythology in the form of jinns. As was explored at the beginning of this essay, Jung's quote comes to mind. Yet in order to sustain his creed, contemporary man pays the price in a remarkable lack of introspection. He is blind to the fact that, with all his rationality and efficiency, he is possessed by powers that are beyond his control. His gods and demons have not disappeared at all, they have merely got new names. They keep him on the run with restlessness, vague apprehensions, psychological complications, an insatiable need for pills, alcohol, tobacco, food, and above all, a large array of neuroses. I know not following my true passions and having the space for introspection has made me feel ill in the past. Is this what we are seeing on a societal level? After all, we can see how profoundly exterior stimuli can have an effect on our core functions, but also conscious beliefs. Are we, through slop entertainment to distract us, lack of proper meaning and purpose, and chemical solutions to spiritual problems to keep us artificially satiated, being kept from our true happiness and fulfilment? Social media helps breed new neuroses every day, depression and narcissism spreading through users like a plague. Is the solution to move back again to a more spiritual society and use our ancestors as guides, with their utilisation of universal symbolism and perennial philosophies? Is the course we are on truly sustainable? One cannot help but wonder if the stripping away of our higher purposes, the cold rationality of atheism, the methodical dismantling of nationalism and collective identity, and of symbolic art from our lives, has been engineered to be the very shackles that were sold to us as freedoms, the blinkers we wear that we were promised would help our societies collectively awaken. Certainly, to analyse whether our society works, we have to look at the satisfaction of its people, and as we can see, the evidence is mounting. People are not happy, and it will manifest in horrific ways if we do not stop the pattern from continuing any further. Is our entertainment and reliance on pharmaceutical and recreational drugs a prison that we have fashioned for ourselves? And, like the rats in Rat Park, if we were given a more organic, natural alternative, would we too turn away from these damaging addictions? I believe Huxley and Jung thought so.